Why, hello everyone, and welcome to our video lesson on transport systems. Now, in this video, we'll be talking about the heart. So here, let me draw a heart to you. You are my student, always in my heart. And, the heart has been the topic of so many poems and songs and human imagination. And in biology as well, we look at the heart and we try to understand it a bit more. And what we want to know about the heart is, what are the different parts of the heart and how does blood flow through it? And how does it work to pump the blood around the body? So let's begin with a simple recap of what we learned about in the last lesson, where we saw that the heart pumps blood around two circuits, right? There was the pulmonary circuit where the heart pumps blood to the lungs and then blood returns from the lungs to the heart. And then there's the systemic circuit where the heart pumps blood to the body and then the blood returns to the heart. And we also learned about the names of the blood vessels which transport the blood from the heart to the lungs and back, and from the heart to the body and back. So we saw how from the heart, the pulmonary artery, right? Arteries carry blood away from the heart. The pulmonary artery carries deoxygenated blood from the heart to the lungs, so that the blood can pick up oxygen in the lungs. And then the pulmonary vein carries oxygenated blood from the lungs back to the heart. And then the oxygenated blood is transported to the rest of the body, right, which needs oxygen. And the artery that carries the oxygenated blood from the heart to the rest of the body is called the aorta. Right? It's an artery because it carries blood away from the heart. Then in the body, in all the tissue cells, oxygen moves from the blood into the tissue cells which need the oxygen. And then carbon dioxide also moves from the tissue cells into the blood to be carried back to the heart. And the vein which carries blood back to the heart is the vena cava. That carries deoxygenated blood from the body back to the heart. So with that knowledge, you should be able to complete this very simple diagram question and to name the blood vessels A, B, C, and D. You can pause the video here and try it for yourself. Alright, but what's more important, what we want to look at now is we want to zoom in on the heart. And we want to take a closer look at the structure of this heart and how it pumps blood around to these two circuits. So let's get closer to the heart. Alright, and first thing to do is that this is a diagram of the heart. It looks really complicated, but don't worry, we're going to get through it with some help and with some color pencils. So take out a blue color pencil and a red color pencil, because it will really help you. Now, the first thing you need to get right is you need to know which side of the heart diagram is the left side. Now, the diagram is usually drawn like a mirror image, right? It's usually drawn like a mirror image. So you can imagine that we are looking at the heart of a person who is facing you. So I'm going to draw this person, right? And he is very big size, and he is facing you. Right, and so the left side of the heart is actually this side. This is the left side, and the right side of the heart is this side. Right, the heart is usually drawn in that way. Now, the other way that you can tell from the diagram, and this is probably the better way, is that the left side has thicker muscle layer. Right, has a thicker muscular layer. Right, so we'll look at that. We'll look at why later, right? But just remember that from the diagram, you can see that the left side is the one thicker muscular layer. Alright, so time to take out your color pencils. So the left side of the heart is here, the right side is here, and the left side of the heart contains oxygenated blood or oxygen-rich blood. So you can just shade in the left side of the heart. It contains oxygenated blood. And the right side of the heart contains deoxygenated blood, so you can shade that blue. Now, this is just a diagram. In real life, deoxygenated blood is not really blue color, right? Deoxygenated blood has a darker red color, and oxygenated blood is brighter red. But we use this to represent in this diagram because it's a bit easier. Now there is a middle part of the heart which separates the deoxygenated and the oxygenated blood, making sure they don't mix. The name of that is the median septum. Okay, it's not very important, but just to be aware that there is this separation. And some kids are born with a hole in the heart. And I want you to think about that. What happens if there's a hole in the heart as well? We'll talk more about this in the lesson. It will cause some problems. So now that we know what the left side of the heart and the right side of the heart is, we need to name the chambers in the heart. Now the chambers of the heart are like rooms in the heart. And the heart has like 4 rooms, okay? And the rooms have names. Now the chambers at the top are called atrium. Okay, so this is the right atrium and this is the left atrium. Okay, these are the chambers at the top. And then we have the right ventricle and the left ventricle. Okay, so right atrium, right ventricle, left ventricle. Now what do these chambers do? So the atrium is a chamber that receives blood into the heart. Right, the main point about atrium receives. It receives blood. The plural of atrium is atria. So the atria receive blood into the heart. So here's the right atrium. Right, later on we'll see that it receives blood. Okay, blood moves into the heart, into the atrium. And then here, blood also moves into the heart, into the atrium. So the atrium receives blood. Now on the other hand, the ventricle, the plural of ventricle is ventricles. The ventricle pumps blood out of the heart. So the atrium receives blood and the ventricle pumps blood out. Okay, so the right ventricle here, later we'll see, will pump blood out this way of the heart. And the left ventricle here will pump blood out this way. So here, and then you can see it's blocked, it goes out through this blood vessel here. So it'll pump blood out of the heart. So main point, atrium receives blood, ventricle pumps out blood of the heart, pumps blood out of the heart. Alright, so now that we've known the names of the chambers, we can look at the main blood vessels that surround the heart. And for this, you're going to see the same blood vessels that we learned about already. The aorta, pulmonary artery, pulmonary vein, and the vena cava. So here you can actually draw arrows to show the flow of blood. Now I'm going to change my pen to blue so that we can learn this together. So how does blood flow through the heart? Well, blood returns from the body, okay? The blood that comes back from the body is deoxygenated, and it comes back to the heart through the vena cava. So this is the vena cava, and the vena cava leads to the right atrium. Okay, I'm going to write RA, okay, right atrium. So blood moves from the body, deoxygenated blood moves into the vena cava, and then into the right atrium. Now from the right atrium, blood will move into the right ventricle. Right? Now from the right ventricle, blood will then be pumped out into the pulmonary artery. The pulmonary artery looks like this. It branches out into 2 branches because one branch goes to the left lung and the other branch goes to the right lung. So the pulmonary artery, right, will bring blood to the lungs. It is the right ventricle that contracts and causes blood to move out into the pulmonary artery to go to lungs. Right? So this goes to the lungs to pick up oxygen. So the blood will go to the lungs, pick up oxygen. So now I'm going to change my pen color to red. I want you to draw along with me. Okay, so now blood has to come back into the heart from the lungs. Remember what's the blood vessel that brings blood from the lungs to the heart? It is the pulmonary vein. Right? So here's the pulmonary vein, these 2 vessels behind here. The pulmonary vein brings oxygenated blood back from the heart. So this is from the lungs. Okay, oxygenated blood comes back from the lungs into the heart, into the left atrium. Alright? Now from the left atrium, the left atrium receives blood that comes from the lungs. The left atrium, the blood will move into the left ventricle. I will just go through here, down to the left ventricle. Now from the left ventricle, blood is going to be pumped out. Oxygenated blood is going to be pumped out to the rest of the body, and it's going to go through this blood vessel called the aorta. So this is the aorta, right? This up here, this arch, this is also the aorta. Right? In fact, this is called the aortic arch. Okay, but just remember aorta also can. Aorta. Right, this will split up into many other blood vessels that go to different parts of the body. Alright, so you need to know the main blood vessels. Vena cava, pulmonary artery, pulmonary vein here, and the aorta is this arch here. Alright, for the last part of this video, we're going to look at how blood flows through the heart. So I've already described a bit, but here's just a recap. So deoxygenated blood from the body will flow through the vena cava, right, and it will enter the right atrium. So let me draw that again for you. Right, so deoxygenated blood from the body will flow into the vena cava, which is this blood vessel, into the right atrium. And then from the right atrium, right, the blood will move into the right ventricle. And then from the right ventricle, the blood will be pumped out to the pulmonary artery to go to the lungs, right? This is deoxygenated blood going to the lungs to pick up oxygen, right? So going to the lungs to pick up oxygen. Okay, so now blood has picked up oxygen, it's oxygenated. Oxygenated blood will come from the lungs back to the heart, right, through the pulmonary vein, right? One from the right lung, one for the left lung. It will return back to the heart. Okay, so this is from the lungs. And it will return back to the left atrium. So this left atrium here. Right. Then blood will move from the left atrium to the left ventricle. And then from the left ventricle, when the left ventricle contracts, it will move out to the aorta, right, which is this blood vessel here. And it will do this to deliver oxygen to the rest of the body. Now it's important to note that when the blood moves from atrium to ventricle, right, actually what happens is that the atrium must contract. Okay, so from the left atrium contracts, then the blood goes into the left ventricle. Now from the left ventricle, in order to push blood into the aorta, the ventricles contract. Okay, so it's important to state that the heart chambers contract in order to push blood out. So please add this on to your notes. Now this is also why the left ventricle has such a thick muscular wall. Its muscular wall is thicker because it's actually pumping blood to the whole body. And that needs a lot more pressure, a lot more force. Whereas the right ventricle is pumping blood only to the lungs. So the muscular wall is a bit thinner. Okay? Alright, so this is the heart, and I hope that you can watch and understand it so that when we come back to class, we can do an activity together to kind of get this more understood and to get it into our heads. Alright, see you there.